Alright, welcome to Revit 2019 Demo 25. We're going to get started by continuing off where we left off with Revit 2019 Demo 24. For this lecture, we're going to create a fill material. You can create your own custom fill patterns by leveraging your AutoCAD.pat files. So what we're going to do is go to Manage, Materials. In here you're going to notice Tile Mosaic Gray. For Tile Mosaic Gray, we're going to pick the pattern and we're going to edit the values. So in here we'll hit pattern, and currently we have 4-inch tile selected. The difference between drafting and model are above, so drafting and model, and there's a series of different ones. We discussed that model patterns scale associated to the scale of the drawing, and drafting patterns are just static. They do not scale. So the materials on the left, we're going to adjust surface materials, which we adjusted the 4-inch pattern, and in here we're going to create a new one. And we're going to go to custom, and I'm going to browse for a custom material. Now I've saved one on my desktop under Hillstone. That's a .pat file. So I'm going to open that, and I'm going to have a stone scaled material. Now in here, what we want to do before we associate the stone scaled material to tile, we want to go back and make sure that we just have 4-inch tile. Now we'll look for default material here, and we're going to select default, and what we can do is duplicate that and rename it as custom material, but we're actually going to call it Gallatin test material. In here we will then adjust the pattern, and we'll go to model, and we'll create a new one, and we'll call it custom pattern. And new pattern name, custom pattern. Or if you have a specific name, in this case it's stone, I'll call it stone. I'll browse, I'll look for the Hillstone pattern, and it's shown above. And in here we'll be able to adjust and add that to our import. Now our import scale should be 0.3, and that'll adjust the value. So we can actually adjust the import scale to adjust the value of what's displayed. Now we're going to hit OK. The pattern with this name already exists, so we'll go ahead and change this to just stone. Hit OK. So there's stone. Hit OK, and that's been applied. Now any AutoCAD pattern can be made into a drafting pattern in Revit. If you want to make the AutoCAD pattern a model pattern, you must add the following line after the title of a custom hatch, like this. So in the example book, there's this dialog, and it's opened in Notepad. So what we can do is we can edit this value or edit the pattern file by opening it inside a Notepad. So what we're going to do is close out of Revit, go to the pattern file where it's located on your computer, and we're going to open this with, and we're going to choose more apps, and we're going to scroll down to Notepad. And inside a Notepad, you're going to notice that we have Hillstone Eldorado Stone.pat. Now according to the book, what we need to do is we need to add a semicolon with a %, type equals model. Now that's already done for us here, so that's the custom hatch above. Now that's the example of the AutoCAD pattern file that is converted to a model pattern for Revit. So that's the only value that we have to add in here to ensure that it connects to Revit correctly. Now moving in, there's a series of other ones that we can look at, and the first 2 lines are essentially, let's look at this one. This is what the AutoCAD file looks like. So adding that semicolon %type equals model. So notice the first 2 lines and the save name. So noticing that is very important. And then we're going to hit OK and go back to the pattern and the path to the model pattern that you created and open it. So that's what we've done, is we've essentially gone in and opened up that Hillstone and created it. You can do that for any AutoCAD pattern, and that's incredibly valuable because if your firm has custom standards, you can adjust those and bring them into Revit. Now you can rename these as you see fit, so you can rename to ensure that it's a different name, but for now we're going to go ahead and just continue with that hillside pattern. So you'll notice the import scale that you can change. So we already did that. And now we saw the new pattern in the Fill Patterns dialog box. So when we go in and we look at the new pattern of stone that we created, which was Gallatin, we did caps for Gallatin, I believe. Let's search Gallatin, test material, Gallatin test. Okay, we didn't save it. So what's important to do is we're going to start with default. We'll go up to default, we'll duplicate it. We'll rename this as Gallatin test material. And in here we will pull in that pattern file again. So we'll go to model, new. We're going to just custom, browse, pull in that pattern file. Change this to 0.3. Call this stone. Hit OK. And we'll hit OK. And what we forgot to do was hit apply and then OK. Now if we go back to materials, we should have Gallatin test material. And there it is. Now from here, this pattern will not appear in a rendering. So we're going to go ahead and test that. The surface pattern is assigned to the material. We're going to create a generic wall with the scale of the drawing at an 1/8 inch equals 1 foot. So we're going to go in and just create a wall. And it's just going to be a generic wall. We'll just do a generic 6 inch. And in here we're going to modify the wall and click paint, which is right up here. And we're going to choose the Gallatin color that we had picked, which was this test material. Gallatin test material. And I'm going to apply that to that front wall. View it in 3D. And you'll notice when I zoom in on this that there is just paint. If the pattern is too dense or too sparse, you will have to change the scale of the pattern. So we're going to go to front, take a look at it. There it is. So if it's too close, it won't work. But if you're zoomed out, it'll show up gray. But if you start to zoom in, it'll render the correct size. So you can adjust that scale. Bigger scale numbers make the pattern bigger. Decimal numbers make it smaller. So the number of patterns, we can now change the scale to a 1/4 inch. So if we change this to a 1/4 inch or 3/8 of an inch, it's still there and there's no issue. But as I zoom out, if I adjust the scale of the view, let's go to 1.5 inches, you'll notice that it's not rendering those values. So just know that when we switch to 1/4 inch though, it's changing the line weights to match the scale of the drawing. So note the same number of patterns. It's not adjusted because it's a model. I assume you have a lot of AutoCAD hatch patterns, so you now have a lot of Revit patterns. So in this lecture, you have learned there is a difference between model and drafting patterns. You applied the patterns to custom materials, and you created a custom family tag to look for a targeted parameter. You applied the custom materials to a system family floor, and you learned to control the display of the pattern on the floor. In this case, you learned how to create and display and control it on a wall. So just understand that. We're going to go ahead and save this as demo25. So demo25. And I will see you in the next lecture.